and welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Hex.
And I'm Badger.
Today in the show, we gather our companions for an all-new quest in Dragon Age 2.
Goodness to worry about.
And we walk the dangerous streets of Kamuro City in Yakuza 4.
But wait, there's more. We also go backwards compatible on BioWare.
But first, can you guess the game for this week? Alright, Hex, I think it's your turn to give away a game to a lucky viewer this week. What you got for us?
I'm actually really excited because I found a really good one. It's a Dreamcast game, Echo the Dolphin, which I think you'll agree is an awesome classic.
No, don't give away Echo. I haven't finished it.
But
It's a good game.
there has to be a use-by date on piles of shame. I mean,
I like splashing about.
well, do you have time to finish it by the end of the show? Because
No,
I'm
I
going to
don't,
give that
no.
to someone.
It's really hard at the end and there's jellyfish and aliens and
I'm
stuff.
going to read the news. I want that back.
Good game.
While details of the devastation caused by the March 11th Japanese earthquake are still emerging, several companies including Capcom, Nintendo, Sega and Square Enix have confirmed that no employees were injured and no significant damage affected their studios. Sony has, however, had to shut down 6 manufacturing sites involved in Blu-ray, lithium-ion battery and disc production. Meanwhile, Square Enix shut down their Final Fantasy XI and XIV servers for at least a week to conserve power while the country recovers from the disaster. Subscribers to the MMOs will not be billed for the month. An exploit was recently discovered for Microsoft's Xbox Live redeemable codes. The glitch offered free virtual money by allowing users to generate their own code for 160 Microsoft points, equivalent to just over $2.50. Detailed instructions on how to create the codes were then posted on the internet. Microsoft fixed the exploit within hours of its discovery. They also invalidated the codes obtained through the exploit and will take appropriate enforcement on an individual basis. Reports stated that over $1 million worth of codes was generated before the glitch was fixed. However, Microsoft has said that that number is vastly exaggerated. In more Microsoft news, the Kinect sensor has become the fastest selling electronics device in history, winning a Guinness World Record in the process. 8 million Kinects were sold in its first 60 days on sale. For comparison, Apple's iPad sold only 2 million in the same time frame.
Good game.
Yakuza 4 draws together 4 men: a moneylender, a corrupt cop, a death row inmate, and the hero of the previous Yakuza game, Kazuma Kiryu, in a plot revolving around a 25-year-old mass murder, a suitcase full of money, a mysterious woman, and a Yakuza conspiracy.
Although nearly everyone in Yakuza 4 speaks Japanese, the real language of this game is punch. There are hardly any interactions that don't revolve around one tough guy punching another tough guy, and I think your enjoyment in this game really comes down to how much you enjoy punching people virtually.
Yeah, that or how much you enjoy a great soap operatic story fueled by testosterone, back tattoos, and impossibly tough guys saying impossibly tough things.
親が死んだせいちゃうやろが。我も極道の端くれやったらな。人生のケツくらい自分で吹け。
Each of the new characters in this 4th installment has a pretty interesting backstory. Shun Akiyama is a former homeless man turned moneylender who likes to gamble on people. Taiga Sajima is a nobleman on death row for the murder of 18 rival Yakuza 25 years before the events of the game.
悪かったの。
And Masayoshi Tanimura is a cop who isn't afraid of taking bribes and shaking down lowlifes, but is still dedicated to justice and tracking down his father's murderer.
Each one of the 4 characters has their own fighting style. Akiyama is a kicker, Sejima is a physical powerhouse and just muscles everyone around, Masa uses parries and joint locks, and Kazuma is a monster with pretty much all of the skills learned in previous games. The fighting engine itself is pretty simple, with a light and heavy attack, a grab, and an avoidance move. It's built around canned combos, so a poorly aimed attack can see you throwing a series of kick and punches into thin air.
You can pretty much pick up anything and use it as a weapon. It's all pretty brutal, but I developed a perverse attraction to attacking people with bicycles and traffic cones, Hex. Fighting charges other characters' heat meter. When it's full, you can pull off a number of really nasty finishing moves. I get that this is a big melodrama about tough guys, but it never really came together for me. It just felt like I was punching a few people and then watching another long, unskippable cutscene. I don't know if I was just approaching this game wrong and expecting something like GTA, but I never really felt like I was really doing anything. Aside from the punching.
This is a lot more reliant on the plot than the GTA series, but there's still a lot of non-story stuff to do. There are a bunch of mini-games and side missions that are strangely addictive, like helping a crazy old homeless man dig for loot in the sewers. Or dressing and training hostesses so that they can become the #1 earner in their bar. Each of the characters can also hunt down revelations, strange photo opportunities that trigger QuickTime events and can teach new abilities or moves.
Hex, I think you have to understand Japanese culture to get this game, and I base it on the fact that I don't know much about Japanese culture and I didn't get it. All that dressing up of hostesses was just a bit weird to me.
Yeah, I guess, but I don't know, I like this game a lot. I had a real problem with some of the mechanics. The minimap is really awful. Unless you memorize the map, then finding anything that's not your next quest objective means you have to slowly hover over every building to see its name.
The instructions for the minigames weren't too crash hot either. Like the creepy massage minigame, it tells you to push buttons to keep your massage meter steady, but no matter what I did, it just kept running down in 3 seconds. And then it called me a pitiful dragon. What?
I'm just gonna call you Pitiful Dragon from now on.
Please do.
I know you might not be so into some of the quirkier aspects of this game, but you have to admit it looks and sounds fantastic.
The faces of the characters show emotion well, but sometimes I think the actual animations don't work right. The fast walking animation is just terrible, but the fighting animations are pretty good.
I think the cutscenes are fantastic. I mean, they're treated more like scenes from a movie than from a video game, and each one is important to the overarching story and the development of each individual character.
They're still a bit too long and slow for my liking, though. I like a good story as much as the next guy, but if I'm playing a game, I want to play a game and not watch a couple of tattooed dudes sitting around a watermelon talking about brotherhood and loyalty.
俺もお前と同じや。些細な親父のためやったら何でもやる。
Yeah, I mean, it is very dramatic, and there is a lot of talk about brotherhood and loyalty, but I don't know, I thought the voice actors did a really great job of the characters.
人を殺すっちゅうがな。
And I'm really glad that the original Japanese dialogue was kept in the Western release. Some lines would just sound incredibly cheesy if you yelled them out in English.
ごっつ怖いもんなんじゃ。
Final thoughts?
I didn't like Yakuza IV very much, and it's kind of for the same reason. The fighting is fun for a while, but there's nothing else that really appeals to me here, so I'm giving it 5.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I think you're right in saying that you have to be really interested in Japanese culture to fully get into this game, but I really enjoyed it. I think it's a great story and it's well told. You have to be patient, but I personally think the payoff is well worth it, so I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game.
Well, Hex, there's been quite a passionate response to our Halo debate, wouldn't you say?
Well, yes, all the fanboys and haters have come out to have their say with nearly 700 emails and nearly 200 forum posts, so thanks to everyone for taking the time to join in the debate.
We were hoping for some original lol-tastic video rants or pitches. I really hate this game, it's stupid! This game's so stupid! But we will go with what we have, and Hex, before we go any further, I think we should reiterate something.
Yes, now quite a few of you took our discussion as being based on our personal opinion, and it isn't. Just as with any debate, there are two sides to argue, and regardless of what we personally believe, we do our best to represent our given side.
Indeed, but now let's start by taking a look at the results of the poll. Fanboy or hater, which are you when it comes to the Halo series? As you can see, with almost 6,500 votes counted, 51% were fanboys versus 18% haters, while 31% just didn't care. Well, it seems that the fans outnumber the haters there, but let's wade through some of your responses to find out why. Let's start with some fanboyism from Jack.
I hate when I hear people bagging Halo. It's usually because they don't have an Xbox 360.
Well, we've seen more than a few haters live up to that theory, such as Chris here. I can't abide the Xbox. As such, I have probably formed a completely unfair analysis of what is probably a great franchise due to a hardware bias.
Well, that's a very understanding hater point of view, unlike these fairly blunt but honest responses from Ben and James. I hate it because it's only on Xbox.
It isn't on PS3, enough said. Surely there must be more to hate than just the console it's on though. Let's see what hater Greed E had to say.
The settings are unimaginative recyclables, and the characters are animated cardboard cutouts, and the weapons look like Happy Meal kids' toys. In a remarkable feat, the story manages to be both sophomorically simple and hopelessly convoluted at the same time. The graphics are cartoony, the soundtrack is repetitive, the multiplayer is too full of potty-mouthed children and perverted frat boys to enjoy. The game's combat and controls are worse, if not the worst, to all the competition. The Halo shooters are made for the masses, and I mean that in the worst possible way. Whew, well, some quite harsh words there, but some interesting points. Let's see what some of the fanboys have to say now.
I sit here in disbelief. How can you talk about loving and hating the mighty game franchise that is Halo without even mentioning the soundtrack? The beautiful combination of strings and choir add a sense of wonderment, mystery, and awe. Good point, Sean, but we're not trying to make comprehensive arguments by any means. We just want to make a few points to get your brains in the mood for arguing and ranting. Really, the whole point of this segment is for you guys to make your points.
Just like this one from Omega ZX. I'm a fanboy because of the continued support by Bungie. It has had nowhere near as many hackers and cheaters as other FPS games, and there are frequent playlist updates and patches. And those who do cheat and hack get the infamous ban hammer. A good community and dev support does make all the difference.
And James here also makes a good point. If it wasn't for Halo, Machinima may not even exist. Machinima has welcomed so many more gamers to the community, all thanks to Halo. Indeed, but let's take a look at just one more response, and it's from Jack.
It's the physics that really give me a happy face. In Call of Duty, it's once I shot some guy. In Halo, once I got on a mongoose and some dude hit it with a rocket and it threw me across the map and I got the flag. Ah yes, there's nothing quite like some of the insanity that can occur when you combine vehicles and crazy physics.
Well, I think we should wrap this one up, Hex, and thank you to everyone who submitted. But next time, we want to see those faces behind the fanboys and the flames, so please get creative, and some video responses would be particularly awesome.
I really hate this game because it's stupid and it's got stupid guns and people do things.
Well, next week we'll be tackling a much loved and hated franchise which should cause some very fiery discussion, Final Fantasy.
So until then, gamers, fight! With not one, not two, but three of this year's biggest games and some of gaming's all-time greats to their name, we figured it was time we take a look at the story of BioWare. It began back in 1995 when three med school graduates decided to create a games company together, as you do. Buoyed by their side work as doctors, the studio got off to a strong start. Only a year later, their first operation was a success. Prognosis? Shattered Steel. This MechWarrior-inspired title for PC was a reasonable success, notable for featuring locational damage and deformable terrain. What's not to love about watching headless mechs bump into stuff and nuclear craters? For its release, BioWare found itself signing up with the publisher Interplay, and we'll see why that matters right now, because while Shattered Steel was still in development, work had begun on their next project, an epic RPG called Battleground Infinity. Conveniently, Interplay had just bought the Dungeons & Dragons license. Once they saw the prototype for Battleground, they suggested BioWare might like to use said license for it. BioWare eagerly agreed, and in 1998, Baldur's Gate was born. Using the second edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons rule set, and offering isometric gaming goodness, it became an instant classic. Baldur's Gate was true role-playing and showed what these BioWare folks were all about, letting players feel in control of the experience, discovering the world and its story how they wanted, even letting us do it online with friends. It was a huge success, selling millions and winning its fair share of awards, so it was no surprise that it spawned an expansion pack while development began on the sequel. But never satisfied with doing the same old thing, BioWare decided to make another action game. A new Shattered Steel game seemed obvious, but they had the opportunity to make a follow-up to the quirky MDK, and they took it. MDK2 stands for, well, nobody knows, other than the 2 bit, which means 2, but we do know that it was a fun and funny game. It was also the first time the studio released a game for consoles, with versions made for Dreamcast and PlayStation 2. That same year, 2000, Baldur's Gate 2 launched to even greater success than the first. But despite that, publisher Interplay was in deep financial trouble.
A chaotic period when gods were made flesh and forced to walk the earth.
And in 2001, BioWare abandoned that sinking ship, which also meant having to abandon their flagship series. So they went north to Neverwinter Nights. Released in 2002, it was based on the 1991 game of the same name, which was the first online RPG with graphics. Going with the Thaco-free 3rd edition D&D and the Forgotten Realms setting, it was RPG bliss. For the first time ever, we could step into the Dungeon Master role and control others' experiences, with servers able to hold upwards of 70 players at once and able to connect with each other to create larger worlds. It also shipped with the Aurora toolset, allowing the community to mod and create their own content to their heart's content. But change was in the water. Microsoft had launched the Xbox and was in desperate need of some quality RPGs for the platform, and who better to turn to than the RPG maestros. And in 2003, we got this. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic for Xbox and PC is considered by many as the best Star Wars game ever. It had a mix of real-time and turn-based combat, adding a layer of action and excitement over what were essentially dice rolls. To the delight of Star Wars fans, it distanced itself from the contentious Star Wars prequels by going 4,000 years into the past, exploring a part of the Star Wars universe we'd never glimpsed before, with no Jar Jar in it. Best of all, it was up to us if we wanted to glimpse it through the eyes of a noble Jedi or an insidious Sith. The relationship with Microsoft continued, and for the first time since Shattered Steel, BioWare created a completely new intellectual property, Jade Empire. This wuxia-inspired action RPG threw out the dice rolls of Knights of the Old Republic, bringing real-time combat to the fore, as well as introducing a moral grey area for players to straddle in their quest. Clearly, Jade Empire was a sign of things to come, as the next epic RPG from BioWare would be completely original, full of moral ambiguity, and a real-time third-person shooter for Microsoft's new console. Mass Effect, the first game in a galaxy-spanning trilogy, gave players a voice in Commander Shepard, and we could use it however we saw fit with the innovative dialogue wheel. You never knew what you were going to say, but it was usually awesome. But it was more awesome thanks to the fact that your choices had true weight and consequence. Previous BioWare games had let you import characters from game to game, but now all of your decisions and actions would carry over to the sequels as well. Not to mention, it let us all live out our Captain Kirk fantasies and seduce a blue alien with tentacles for hair. Then, from blue aliens to blue hedgehogs, they went with Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood for DS in 2008. It was BioWare's first foray into the world of handheld gaming and put the spiked blue one into a turn-based RPG. An odd place for the notoriously speedy marsupial, but it worked well enough and was notable for making many of the Sonic supporting cast likable for a change. The experiments in portable gaming didn't stop there, as Mass Effect went mobile with Mass Effect Galaxy for iOS. A short prequel to Mass Effect 2, it saw us tilting and blasting our way through mazes in between, making a few inconsequential dialogue choices. It's safe to say this wasn't BioWare's best work, but that misstep was quickly forgotten in the wake of the long-anticipated arrival of Baldur's Gate's spiritual successor, Dragon Age Origins. It was a return to the days of yore, ditching fancy dialogue menus and going for a fairly traditional RPG combat system. It was memorable and massive.
You have been warned.
And now, just 2 more games to look at before we review its sequel. Mass Effect 2 gave us more of the spacefaring epicness and tough moral choices that we loved from the first, but tightened up all the pew-pew action. And now we could finally see the consequences of our actions playing out, giving players one of the most personalized gaming experiences ever. And with Mass Effect 3 set to conclude the trilogy at the end of the year, we can't wait to see how badly we screwed over the universe. And then there's the big one, Star Wars: The Old Republic, BioWare's first true attempt at an MMO, and the second attempt at a Star Wars MMO. It's no small deal. In a market dominated by World of Warcraft, it's a risky move, but with the Star Wars license and the underexplored Old Republic setting, combined with BioWare's ability to bring characters and stories to life, it could just be the perfect storm, and we'll find out if that's true later this year. BioWare have proven almost without exception, if they release a game, you should care. So let's find out now if Dragon Age 2 lives up to that.
The Blight has been defeated, mostly, and it's time for a new hero to arise in Dragon Age 2.
Looking to explore the deep roads, are you?
This sequel to the obsessively loved Dragon Age Origins will feel quite different to fans. For a start, you have a voice and a name now. Hawke is a survivor of the Blight, along with his sister and mother, who flee to a place called Kirkwall, a city and refugee camp. It's then up to Hawke to look after his family, reclaim his lost estate, and get as much fat gear as possible.
You can import your Origin save file, which doesn't really make any big changes to the game other than a few cameos. Hawke's story is determined by your actions, and at various points throughout the game, things will change based on the choices you make. The story is told in retrospect through a conversation between a mysterious woman of the Chantry and one of Hawke's companions, Varric. It's a wonderful way to tell it. We've done our best to hide all spoilers here, but it's a hard thing to do in such a big game about choice.
This game's theme is all about Templars versus mages. The Templars don't trust the magic, and the mages just want to be free. Often you'll be in a position to root for one side or the other.
They are weapons. They have the power to light a city on fire in a fit of pique.
Mages are humans and elves, just like the rest of us.
Exploring this conflict is reasonably interesting, but nowhere near as interesting as the epic storyline from Dragon Age Origins.
Yeah, there are some narrative problems here. I mean, with Hawke, no matter how you choose to play him or her, it seems like all he or she cares about is money.
I'm taking the goods anyway.
Ethenril told me this was my last chance or we were back on the streets. I don't know what we're going to do now.
There's no clear villain to really pull you along. This is a tale of grinding your way to importance so that you can play a part in this final conflict. You get a seriously pimped mansion though.
I think my main problem with Hawke is that he has no noble purpose, no long-term noble goal that you can strive towards, and I think that really hurts the character. Also, I couldn't customize him the way I wanted to.
You want to make him a short Patrick Stewart lookalike dwarf.
Yeah.
I think the best part of this game are your dealings with the Qunari.
The path ahead is littered with my kind. If you are as skilled as you look, it would please me if you killed them.
Their leader is one of the most interesting and well-written characters in the game, with some of the best dialogue and backstory, and it's a shame the whole game isn't about him.
Dwarves, humans, elves, just festering. No order, no goal.
For me, the last game, Origins, was all about that story and the way you carved your path through it. So I was literally devastated when this didn't have that story. I just wanted to go and talk to people about all the choices I made and see what they made and what differences came about that, because that's really fun. But after this, I couldn't even remember any of the important choices. Maybe one, and I didn't even care about that one. So in Origins, there was such strategy in those conversations. Each one of them felt like their own little turn-based battle,
I just don't know how you could do it, how you could make that decision.
And here, I just felt like no matter what I did, the same outcome would happen. It's possible Origins just hid that better, but regardless, here I felt the stakes were never high, so I just didn't care about anything that happened.
I guess I really have no choice but to just accept that.
I miss the old dialogue trees so much. I mean, the Mass Effect style wheel works fine, but it's just not the same. I think those emotion icons on the wheel took away some of that wonderful ambiguity that the text-based choices imposed. I mean, it's sort of like the devs thought that we couldn't handle, not being sure of what a particular response would lead to, like whether or not a witty remark would turn into a fight or not.
You're just too dangerous.
Yeah, and that made those decisions so painful, but in a good way, you'd be like, oh, what do I do? Where is this gonna go? But now you can actually see when you're in that point in that conversation, which is gonna change which way it's gonna go because of the icon, and that just takes all the fun out of it for me.
I think the other big problem is the lack of locations. Except for an expedition into the Deep Roads, which is a location from the first game, and the odd repeat trip to the beach, you spend the entire rest of the game in Kirkwall, wandering the streets and jumping from the Hangman's Bar to only a handful of other city locations. There's just too much repetition in the environments, and a lot of them felt really box-like.
Yeah, and Origins had this big, fantastic journey theme to it, where you'd be traversing the land and getting harassed by wolves and fighting back the big evil, leading up to a big fight. And I spent well over 60 hours in Origins, and I loved every minute of it. But here, after hour 20, I just pushed on with those main storyline missions because I wasn't getting anything out of it, and I just wanted to, have the hint of adventure and hope they would take me somewhere, but they didn't.
We chose to review this on 360, but we have played this on PC as well, and I think they're more on par with each other now. There is the odd repeat glitch, which is more funny than annoying.
I will bring Fainriel to the gallows.
I won't let you kill these people.
Now we fight!
The Maker be my witness. I will bring Fainriel to the gallows.
Who are you talking to? The mushroom?
I won't let you kill these people.
but overall it runs much smoother than Origins did on the console. The few environments there are load much faster and look more detailed with more enemies on screen. That makes for some huge fights. Combat is still rich in strategy. The console controls are much better this time, and the inventory system and talent trees are much easier to navigate too. I think the map interface could have been done a lot better though. It's still quite confusing.
Yeah, I think to really appreciate the combat in this too, you just have to play it on hard or nightmare. That forces you to stop and think and pause the game to try and solve a problem that's happening in your fight. Plus, it looks cool when you pause. Pausing lets you queue up an action for each character, such as laying down some crowd control or gulping a potion. Also, now when you're in live combat, you don't get that queuing delay stumble if you change abilities while running towards an enemy, which was a pretty punishing aspect that hurt the previous game's momentum a little bit. When you have no abilities to perform, you'll be spamming A for attack and keeping an eye on your companion's health and waiting for those cooldowns to roll around. The AI of your teammates works a bit better now too. The healers won't break your line of sight as much, and only once I think they bugged out and left me to fight everyone. Thanks. Only once.
There's so much delicious strategy to be had playing with the combat tactics too. This is your game plan, and while the default ones do a great job of setting rules as you level everyone up, setting up or modifying your own is the only way to go. For example, you can set up cross-combo abilities to make a more efficient team, such as a mage to brittle the target of your warrior tank, and then a warrior to automatically shatter them with a paired ability. And the mages are crazy this time around. There's so many specs and abilities.
Yeah, and even though those little slow motion finishes are gone, which is a real shame, the warriors, the way they slice and dismember the enemies as they charge through is pretty exciting. When you get your combat tactics set up just right and you can rush into a mob and just destroy them in seconds, it's super satisfying. I was always tinkering with them, and they only seem to glitch out every now and then when you were assigning potions that kind of wiped them for no reason.
I think this is a very different game to Origins, and if you go into it expecting Origins 2, then you're going to be kind of disappointed. I'm just not sure the Mass Effect approach really suited such a grand fantasy, because it's just not grand enough, and while Hawk is a wonderfully voiced character, he's just not that much fun to play. It's not a bad RPG, but it lacked scale, and the level design failed to convince me that I was in a real world, so I'm giving it 7 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Yeah, like every time a character said this.
Oh shit.
It just felt so out of place, and you know, the companions are fun, but they're no Alistair or Morrigan. This is a very polished game in some ways, but I would happily take all of the rough back from Origins simply to have a story that I could love, so I'm giving it 7 out of 10 rubber chickens.
This encounter will have a high challenge rating, big boy.
Good game.
So did you guess the game for this week? It was the 2003 GameCube game Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg, which was later ported to PC and Mac. It was a quirky 3D platformer all about rolling around a giant egg. Just one of the many projects that Yakuza series producer Toshihiro Nagoshi has been involved with, which also include Shenmue and Super Monkey Ball.
Echo the Dolphin. I both love and hate this game with a passion, so I'm kind of happy and sad that it's going.
Well, you can plead your case for why you think you should deserve this awesome classic on the Good Game Facebook page or on the Good Game forums. And while you're on our website, you may also notice that we're giving something else away, but it's not a prize, it's a job.
That's right, Good Game is on the hunt for a new field reporter. So if you think you've got what it takes to fill the shoes of Ray and Ajax, then please head to the Good Game website and have a look at what you need to do to apply.
But you will need to put together a short show reel to show off your gaming knowledge and mad presenting skills. But before you go crazy filming stuff, make sure you head over to the website and have a good read, because there are some very specific instructions you need to follow.
Well, good luck to all those who apply. Next week we'll be checking out the emotion-fueled FPS Homefront. So until then, gamers, Barjo out.
Hex out.